We're on 530 at the top.
being stood immortal in transient, deathless delight with momentary scenes. She had come into the mortal body's womb, but since she knows the toil of mind and life, as a mother feels and shares her children's life, she puts forth a small portion of herself, a being no bigger than the sum of man, into a hidden region of the heart, to face the pang and to forget the bliss, to share the suffering and endure your earth womb and labor mid the labor of the stars.
Good morning. Yeah. So we're concluding the canto, the finding of the soul. Savitri has already found her secret soul. She had come through various layers of the inner being. It was quite a journey extending over 2 or 3 cantos, but all happening in a very short period of time. One night, as she was watching over Satyavan on a sleepless night, grieving over his forthcoming demise, which she knew was coming. And she had heard a voice from the summits of her being telling her not to nurse this grief, but rather to go within and find her soul. And so she has done that. And the way Sri Aurobindo describes it is that there are 2 different aspects to the soul or central being. One above the manifestation of the individual being, but presiding over it, which he calls the Jivatman in his prose works. And then, as Mother was describing in her reading, she puts forth this being into the manifestation, into the individual evolving here on earth. She puts forth a small portion of herself, a being no bigger than the thumb of man, into a hidden region of the heart, to face the pang and to forget the bliss, to share the suffering and endure earth's wounds and labor mid the labor of the stars. So this psychic being evolves along with the outer nature. Identified with the mind and body and life, it takes on itself their anguish and defeat, bleeds with fate's whips and hangs upon the cross. yet is the unwounded and immortal self supporting the actor in the human scene. Through this, she sends us her glory and her powers, pushes to wisdom's heights through misery's gulfs. She gives us strength to do our daily task and sympathy that partakes of others' grief, and the little strength we have to help our race. So then, here in this chamber of flame and light they met, they looked upon each other, knew themselves, the secret deity and its human part, the calm, immortal, and the struggling soul. Then, with a magic transformation speed, they rushed into each other and grew one. And after this takes place, Savitri's chakras begin to open, or they open in succession. And Sri Aurobindo is describing this process. First, she's seated in concentration, as if on concentration's marble seat, calling the mighty mother of the worlds to make this earthly tenement her house. And then, as in a flash from a supernal light, a living image of the original power, a face, a form came down into her heart and made of it its temple and pure abode. But when its feet had touched the quivering bloom, a mighty movement rocked the inner space, as if a world were shaken and found its soul. Out of the inconscient, soulless, mindless night, a flaming serpent rose, released from sleep. It rose, billowing its coils, and stood erect, and climbing mightily, stormily on its way. It touched her centers with its flaming mouth, as if a fiery kiss had broken their sleep. They bloomed and laughed, surcharged with light and bliss. Then at the crown it joined the eternal space. And after this, Sri Aurobindo describes this blooming of each of these chakras. So he's described them from above, from the mind, from the chakra in the forehead that rules the will and thought and concentration, and the chakra in the throat, which rules the expression through word and act of the soul, of the deeper being. And then it touched the lotus of the heart, and love, chanting its pure hymeneal hymn, made life and body mirrors of sacred joy. And all the emotions, gave themselves to God. And now he'll continue down to the navel lotus, where we'll start. And Paula can start. Top of page 530.
The top of page 130 or 530?
530.
Oh, okay. In the navel lotus's broad imperial range, its proud ambitions and its master lusts were tamed into instruments of a great calm sway to do a work of God on earthly soil. In the narrow nether center's petty parts, its childish game of daily dwarf desires was changed into a sweet and boisterous play, a romp of little gods with life in time. In the deep place where once the serpent slept, there came a grip on matter's giant powers for large utilities in life's little space. A firm ground was made for heaven's descending might. Behind all reigned her sovereign deathless soul, casting aside its veil of ignorance, allied to gods and cosmic beings and powers. It built the harmony of its human state, surrendered into the great world mother's hands. Only she obeyed her soul's supreme behest in the enigma of the inconscious world. A secret soul behind, supporting all, is master and witness of our ignorant life, amidst the person's look and nature's role. But once the hidden doors are flung apart, then the veiled king steps out in nature's front. A light comes down into the ignorance. Its heavy, painful knot loosens its grasp. The mind becomes a mastered instrument, and life a hue and figure of the soul. All happily grows towards knowledge and towards bliss.
Thank you. So I just pause for a minute or two. You can review. So Sri Aurobindo is describing first the opening of the lower three chakras. First, the navel chakra, which he says expresses the higher vital, or the middle or higher vital. And below that, below the navel, is the chakra that rules the lower vital. And below that is the base chakra, Muladhara chakra, at the base of the spine. That rules the basic elemental powers of the being. So the navel chakra expresses the proud ambitions and master lusts. But as it opens, these were tamed into instruments of a great calm sway to do a work of God on earthly soil. And then in the lower vital chakra, which expresses the daily dwarf desires. And these were changed into a sweet and boisterous play, a romp of little gods with life and time. And then in the lowest chakra, there came a grip on matter's giant powers for large utilities in life's little space. So these forces, physical forces, ruling sex especially, become mastered, become turned for large utilities in life's little space. Yeah?
Its instrument in the great calm sway, and the narrow nether center, the other chakra, is changed into sweet and boisterous play. I mean, it's quite a different what the transformation is and what the role of them is.
Yeah, the higher vital is more conscious, representing larger, more expansive movements of the life energy, for ambition, for the primary drives, ambitions in life. The lower vital, in contrast, is more focused just on little daily movements, small movements of the life force in the daily life.
More the mind working also in it, or the controlling, or the taming.
Yeah, it's the higher vital, but yes, it's more conscious. And then after describing the openings of these three chakras, he describes something of the role of the soul in general. He says that there's a secret soul behind, supporting all, is master and witness of our ignorant life. So normally the soul is secret, supporting, behind the life, witness of our ignorant life, master of it, he says. So also it's directing, in a sense, its trend, its movement, its evolution, its guiding, but it's not there directing each movement in the life. It's allowing the life, the nature, to evolve, but it's providing some guidance in that. But then he says, but once the hidden doors are flung apart, once these chakras open, then the veiled king steps out in nature's front. A light comes down into the ignorance. Its heavy, painful knot loosens its grasp. The mind becomes a mastered instrument, and life a hue and figure of the soul. All happily grows towards knowledge and towards bliss. So even then, this evolution, development of nature can continue, but now it's an evolution in the light, harmonious development, rather than this kind of painful, ignorant struggle that occurs before the chakras are open like this completely.
And why she told the people in Auroville, in the beginning, you get to the psychic being. Because without that, you cannot, cannot feel and exercise putting this thing of the, turned into instruments and do the work of God in earthly soil. Otherwise, you can't do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's clearly the safest route. I'm not sure that it's the only way that can happen, because some people, it seems, these chakras might open almost spontaneously or something, and yet then it can create dangers, difficulties for them. But the proper way, I think, especially in this yoga, what Sri Aurobindo and Mother are recommending, is yes, to open that, go into the psychic being. And the psychic being, it's the part of us that surrenders to the divine, that gives itself to the divine, without any seeking for something for itself. It's just a pure self-giving. And that's what Savitri does here. And she calls the mother into her, and the mother descends into her. And then these chakras open. So that self-giving is kind of an action of the psychic being. And then we see too that The way that he describes the opening of the chakras here is from above downwards, from the mind, from the higher kind of spiritual mind, higher mind at the crown chakra, to the forehead, to the expressive mind in the throat, to the heart center, to the vital, and below. So he describes these as kind of opening from above downwards. But again, it's not apparently the only way that they can open, that some yogas, disciplines focus on opening the lower chakra first. So let's continue. Wait. No, you can come down.
And pushes the movements of our body and mind. Possessor of our passionate hopes and dreams, the beloved despot of our thoughts and acts, she streams into us with her unbound force. Into mortal limbs, the immortal's rapture and power. An inner law of beauty shapes our lives. Our words become the natural speech of truth. Each thought is a ripple on a sea of light. Then sin and virtue leave the cosmic lists. They struggle no more in our delivered hearts. Our acts chime with God's simple natural good, or serve the rule of a supernal right. All moods unlovely, evil and untrue forsake their stations in fierce disarray, and hide their shame in the subconscious dusk. Then lifts the mind a cry of victory. O soul, my soul, we have created heaven. Within we have found the kingdom here of God, His fortress built in a loud, ignorant world. Our life is entrenched between two rivers of light. We have turned space into a gulf of peace and made the body a capital of bliss. What more, if more must still be done? In the slow process of the evolving spirit, in the brief state between a death and birth, a first perfection stage is reached at last. Out of wood and stone of our nature stuff, a temple is shaped where the high gods could live. Even if the struggling world is left outside, one man's perfection still can save the world. There is a new proximity to the skies, a first betrothal of the earth to heaven, a deep concordat between truth and life. A camp of God is pitched in human time.
Thank you.
Life is entrenched between two rivers of light. What are these two rivers of light? 331.
I'm not sure, but it might be this influence of this psychic being below and this Jivatman central being above. So he's describing here the, you could say, the psychic transformation, the taking control of the nature by the soul and turning all of its movements towards the divine. And it's interesting that Sri Aurobindo changes the person that he's speaking of. So just a few lines earlier, he had changed. First, he was talking about Savitri and she and her, and then he says in the enigma, just halfway down the page on 530, in the enigma of the inconscious world, a secret soul behind supporting all is master and witness of our ignorant life. So he turns from Savitri to explaining the role of the soul in general in all of us. But when this psychic being comes forward and takes control over the nature, then it calls down also the powers from above, from this central being, the divine light, bliss, and power stream down into us from above. She streams into us with her unbound force, into mortal limbs, the immortal's rapture and power. And then the lower movements of the being dissipate, leave. Then sin and virtue leave the cosmic lists. They struggle no more in our delivered hearts. Our acts chime with God's simple, natural good, or serve the rule of a supernal right. All moods unlovely, evil, and untrue forsake their stations in fierce disarray and hide their shame in the subconscious dusk. But then Sri Aurobindo describes this as just a first perfection stage. For Sri Aurobindo, this isn't yet the culmination of the yoga, but it's the first step, bringing the, let's say, divine government of the life down into the body, into the mind and life, to rule it here. But it's an individual victory still. It's just affecting that individual person and not the world around necessarily. It may have an influence on others, but it's not going to change the world. A temple is shaped where the high gods could live. Even if the struggling world is left outside, one man's perfection still can save the world. And how is that? Because a camp of God is pitched in human time. So there's a individual realization of the divinity here in life, in the world. And that kind of surrender and opening to the divinity can continue this spiritual development and call down the higher supramental powers that can transform the life, that can save the world, transform the world. But that is yet to be done.
To point out what you just said, that because in the normal understanding is when we are in heaven or we are free and then everything is finished. That was the old thinking, ne? And it's very much still ruling the world. Ne? It is so this aspect that the evolution always goes forward, that there are big steps what she did, but then even more, ne? And also in Mother Sri Aurobindo's work. Ne? So maybe you can deepen this also a little bit more.
Yeah, this is just an individual realization of the divine. But Sri Aurobindo is seeking for a wider realization, bringing the divine power and light and bliss into the world itself, into all beings. And as you say, the old spirituality aimed more at a release from the world rather than a transformation of it. Yeah. Mm.
It tells you that more, even though you build the temple and you build the fortress, and you can help save the world, but it's still not enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is a very significant part.
Yeah, I think it's for that greater achievement of this, let's say, change or transformation of the world, it's an indispensable step. Without this, we can find release into the higher spiritual consciousness, depart from the world, or live in it as a kind of a witness, unaffected. But to change it, this kind of government of the life by the divine is necessary. So we can continue into the next canto. So normally we read through the canto without commenting on it first, and then we go back and read again. So, Margaret.
Nirvana and the discovery of the all-negating absolute. A calm, slow sun looked down from tranquil heavens. A rooted sullen rearguard of retreat, the last rains had fled, murmuring across the woods, or failed, a sibilant whisper mid the leaves, and the great blue enchantment of the sky recovered the deep rapture of its smile. Its mellow splendor, unthrust by storm-licked heats, found room for luxury of warm, mild days. The night's gold treasure of autumnal moons came floating, shipped through ripples of fairy air. And Savitri's life was glad, fulfilled like earth. She had found herself, she knew her being's aim. Although her kingdom of marvelous change within remained unspoken in her secret breast, all that lived round her felt its magic charm. The trees' rustling voices told it to the winds. Flowers spoke in ardent youth on unknown joy. The birds recalling became a canticle. The beasts forgot their strife and lived at ease. Absorbed in wide communion with the unseen, the mild ascetics of the wood received a sudden greatening of their lonely muse. This bright perfection of her inner state poured overflowing into her outward scene, made beautiful dull come in natural things, and action wonderful and time divine. Even the smallest, meanest work became a sweet or glad and glorious sacrament, an offering to the self of the great world, or service to the one in each and all.
Thank you.
Which line? Line?
Top of 533.
A light invaded all from her being's light. Her heartbeats dance communicated bliss. Happiness grew happier, shared with her by her touch, and grief some solace found when she drew near. Above the cherished head of Satyavan, she saw not now fate's dark and lethal orb, a golden circle around a mystic sun, disclosed to her newborn predicting sight, the cyclic grandeur of a sovereign life. In her visions and deep-etched veridical dreams, in brief shiftings of the future's heavy screen, he lay not by a dolorous decree, a victim in the dismal antry of death, or born to blissful regions far from her, forgetting the sweetness of earth's warm delight, forgetting the passionate oneness of love's clasp, absolved in the self-wrapped immortal's bliss. Always he was with her, a living soul, that met her eyes with close enamored eyes, a living body near to her body's joy. But now no longer in these great wild woods, in kinship with the days of bird and beast, and levelled to the bareness of earth's brown breast, but mid the thinking high-built lives of men, in tapestried chambers and on crystal floors, in armoured town or gardened pleasure walks, even in distance closer than her thoughts, body to body near, soul near to soul, moving as if by a common breath and will, they were tied in the single circling of their days, together by love's unseen atmosphere, inseparable like the earth and sky. Thus for a while she trod the golden path. This was the sun before abysmal night.
Thank you. Next.
Once as the set in deep felicitic mass, still...
No, I don't think you're in the right place. Second line from the bottom on 533, one says she sat.
Once as She sat in deep Philistine moose, still quivering from the lover's strong embrace, and made her joy a bridge twixt earth and heaven. An obvious yard suddenly breathed her heart. A vast and nameless fear dragged at the nerves, as dark a wild breast in half struggling prey. It seemed to even know then from which it sprang. It was not hers, but did it unseen cause. Then, rushing calm, it vast and hurtful found a formless dread with shapeless, endless wings, filling the universe with the dangerous breath. A denser darkness than the night could bear enveloped the heaven and possessed the earth. A ruling surge of silent death in calm, curving round the four edge of the quaking globe, affecting even which the enormous street. It will to expand the coquette and anguisher, and the fable of the joy of life. It seemed her very being to forbid, obstructing all by which her natural lived, and labor to blur our outer body and soul. A clutch of some half seen invisibly, an ocean of tear and the sovereign mighty, a person and black infinity.
Thank you.
It seemed to cry to her without thought or word, the message of its dark eternity and the awful meaning of its silences. Out of some sullen, monstrous vast arisen, out of an abysmal deep of grief and fear, imagined by some blind, regardless self, a consciousness of being without its joy, empty of thought, incapable of bliss, that felt life blank and nowhere found a soul. A voice to the dumb anguish of the heart conveyed a stark sense of unspoken words. In her own depths she heard the unuttered thought that made unreal the world and all life meant. Who art thou who claimest thy crown of separate birth, the illusion of thy soul's reality, and the personal godhead of an ignorant globe, in the animal body of imperfect man? Hope not to be happy in a world of pain, and dream not, listening to the impulse, unspoken word, and dazzled by the inexpressible ray, transcending the mute superconscience realm, to give a body to the unknowable, or for a sanction to the heart's delight, to burden with bliss the silent, still, supreme, profaning its bare and formless sanctity, or call into the chamber the divine, and sit with God, tasting a human joy.
Thank you. B.
I have created all I devour. I am death, and the dark, terrible mother of life. I am Kali, black and naked in the world. I am Maya, and the universe is my cheat. I lay waste human happiness with my breath, and I slay the will to live, the joy to be, that all may pass back into nothingness, and only abide the eternal and absolute. For only the blank eternal can be true. All else is shadow and flash in mind's bright glass. Mind, hollow mirror in which ignorance sees a splendid figure of its own false self, and dreams it sees a glorious, solid world. O soul, inventor of man's thoughts and hopes, thyself the invention of the moment's stream, illusion's center or subtle apex point, at last know thyself, from vain existence cease. A shadow of the negating absolute, the intolerant darkness traveled surging past and ebbed in her the formidable voice. It left behind her inner world laid waste. A barren silence weighed upon her heart. Her kingdom of delight was there no more. Only her soul remained, its emptied stage, awaiting the unknown eternal will.
Thank you.
Then from the heights a greater voice came down. The word that touches the heart and finds the soul. The voice of light after the voice of night. The cry of the abyss drew heaven's reply. A might of storm chased by the might of the sun. O soul, bear not thy kingdom to the foe. Consent to hide thy royalty of bliss, lest time and fate find out its avenues and beat with thunderous knock upon thy gates. Hide whilst thou canst thy treasure of separate self behind the luminous rampart of thy depths, till of a vaster empire it grows part. But not for self alone the self is won. Content abide not with one conquered realm. Adventure all to make the whole world thine. To break into greater kingdom turn thy force. Fear not to be divinity, that man may find his utter self in God. If for thy own sake only thou hast come, an immortal spirit into the mortal's world, to found thy luminous kingdom in God's dark, in the inconscious realm, one shining star, one door in the ignorance opened upon light, why hadst thou any need to come at all?
Thank you.
Thou hast come down into a struggling world to aid a blind and suffering mortal race, to open to light the eyes that could not see, to bring down bliss into the heart of grief, to make thy life a bridge twixt earth and heaven, if thou wouldst save the toiling universe. The vast universal suffering feel as thine, thou must bear the sorrow that thou claimst to heal. The daybringer must walk in darkest night. He who would save the world must share its pain. If he knows not grief, how shall he find grief's cure? If far he walks above mortality's head, how shall the mortal reach that too high path? If one of theirs they see scale heaven's peaks, men then can hope to learn that Titan climb. God must be born on earth and be as man, that man being human may grow even as God. He who would save the world must be one with the world. All suffering things contain in his heart space, and bear the grief and joy of all that lives. His soul must be wider than the universe, and feel eternity as its very stuff, rejecting the moment's personality, know itself older than the birth of time, creation and incident in its consciousness, Arcturus and Belphegor grains of fire, circling in a corner of its boundless self, the world's destruction a small transient storm, in the calm infinity it has become.
Thank you.
Vast chain, draw back from the world that the idea has made, thy mind's selection from the infinite, thy senses' gloss on the infinitesimal's dance, then shalt thou know how the great bondage came. Banish all thought from thee, and be God's void, then shalt thou uncover the unknowable, and the superconscient conscious grow on thy tops. Infinity's vision through thy gaze shall pierce, thou shalt look into the eyes of the unknown, find the hid truth in things seen null and false. Behind things known discover mysteries rear, thou shalt be one with God's bare reality, and the miraculous world he has become, and the diviner miracle still to be, when nature, who is now unconscious God, translucent grows to the eternal's light. Her seeing his sight, her walk his steps of power, and life is filled with a spiritual joy, and matter is the Spirit's willing bride. Consent to be nothing and none, dissolve time's work, cast off thy mind, step back from form and name, annul thyself that only God may be. Thus spoke the mighty and uplifting voice, and Savitri heard. She bowed her head and mused, plunging her deep regard into herself, into her soul's privacy in the silent night. Aloof and standing back detached and calm, a witness of the drama of herself, a student of her own interior scene, she watched the passion and the toil of life, and heard in the crowded thoroughfares of mind the unceasing tread and passage of her thoughts. All she allowed to rise that chose to stir, calling, compelling naught, forbidding naught. She left all to the process formed in time and the free initiative of nature's will.
Thank you. You're next.
Thus, following the complex human play, she heard the prompter's voice behind the scenes, perceived the original libretto set, and the organ theme of the composer force. All she beheld that surges from man's depths, the animal instincts prowling mid life's trees, the impulses that whisper to the heart, and passion's thunder chase sweeping the nerves. She saw the powers that stare from the abyss, and the wordless light that liberates the soul. But most her gaze pursued the birth of thought. Affranchised from the look of surface mind, she paused not to survey the official case, the issue of forms from the office of the brain, its factory of thought sounds and soundless words, and voices stored within unheard by men, its mint and treasury of shining coin. These were but counters in mind's symbol game, a gramophone's disc, a reproduction's film, a list of signs, a cipher, and a code. In our unseen, subtle body, thought is born, or there it enters from the cosmic field. Oft from her soul stepped out a naked thought, luminous with mysteried lips and wonderful eyes, or from her heart emerged some burning face and looked for life and love and passionate truth, aspired to heaven or embraced the world, or led the fancy like a fleeting moon across the dull sky of man's common days, amidst the doubtful certitudes of earth's lore, to the celestial beauty of faith gave form, as if at flower prints in a dingy room, laughed in a golden vase, one living rose.
Thank you.
Thaumaturgist sat in our hearts deep, compelled the forward stride, the upward look, till wonder leaped into the illumined breast, and life grew more marvelous with transfiguring hope. A seeing will pondered between the brows. Thoughts, glistening angels, stood behind the brain, in flashing armor, folding hands of prayer, and poured heaven's ray into the earthly form. Imaginations flamed up from her breasts, unearthly beauty, touches of surpassing joy, and plans of miracle, dreams of delight. Around her navel lotus clustering close, her large sensations of the teeming worlds streamed their numb movements of the unformed idea. Invading the small sensitive flower of the throat, they brought their mute unuttered resonances to kindle the figures of heavenly speech. Below, desires formed their wordless wish, and longings of physical sweetness and ecstasy translated into the ascents of a cry, their grasp on subjects and their clasp on souls. Her body's thoughts climbed from her conscious limbs and carried their yearnings to its mystic crown, where nature's murmurs meet the ineffable. But for the mortal prisoned in outward mind, all must present their passport at its door. Disguised, they must don the official cap and mask, or pass as manufacturers of the brain. Unknown their secret and hidden source, only to the inner mind they speak directly, put on a body and assume a voice. Their passage seen, their message heard and known, their birthplace and their natal mark revealed, and stand confessed to an immortal sight, or nature's messengers to the witness soul.
Thank you.
Impenetrable without held for mortal sense, the inner chambers of the spirit's house disclosed to her their happenings and their guests. Eyes looked through crevices in the invisible wall, and through the secrecy of unseen doors there came into mind's little frontal room thoughts that enlarged our limited human range, lifted the ideals half-quenched or sinking torch, or peered through the finite at the infinite. A sight opened upon the invisible, and sensed the shapes that mortal eyes see not, the sounds that mortal listening cannot hear, the blissful sweetness of the intangible's touch, the objects that to us are empty air, are there the stuff of daily experience, and the common pabulum of sense and thought. The beings of the subtle realms appeared, and scenes concealed behind our earthly scene. She saw the life of remote continents, and distance deafened not to voices far. She felt the movements crossing unknown minds. The past events occurred before her eyes. The great world's thoughts were part of her own thought. The feeling dumb forever and unshared, the ideas that never found an utterance. The dim subconscious incoherent hints laid bare a meaning twisted, deep and strange, the bitter secret of their fumbling speech, their links with underlying reality.
Thank you.
The unseen grew visible and audible. Thoughts leaped down from a superconscient field, like eagles swooping from a viewless peak. Thoughts gleamed up from the screened subliminal depths like golden fishes from a hidden sea. This world is a vast, unbroken totality. A deep solidarity joins its contrary powers. God's summits look back on the mute abyss. So man evolving to divinest heights colloques still with the animal and the jinn. The human godhead with stargazer eyes lives still in one house with the primal beast. The high meets the low. All is a single plan. So she beheld the many births of thought, if births can be of what eternal is, for the eternal's powers are like himself, timeless in the timeless, in time ever born. This too she saw, that all an outer mind is made, not born, a product perishable, forged in the body's factory by earth force. This mind is a dynamic small machine producing ceaselessly till it wears out. With raw materials drawn from the outside world, the pattern sketched out by an artist god. Often our thoughts are finished cosmic wares, admitted by a silent office gate and passed through the subconscious galleries, then issued in time smart as private make.
Thank you. I think we stop there.
the wind, a high celestial change, breaking the black inconscience blind mute warm. Each part of the being trembling with delight, lay overwhelmed with tides of happiness. In the country of the lotus of the head, in the castle of the lotus twixt the brows, in the passage of the lotus of the soul, in the kingdom of the lotus of the heart, in the narrow lotus's broad imperial reign, in the narrow network center petty part, in the deep place where once the serpent slept, a firm ground was made for heaven's descending might.
सुषुम्णापतेन जीव शिव परम शिव पदे योजयामि स्वाहा। ॐ यं सङ्कोच शरीरं दह दह स्वाहा। ॐ परम शिव सुषुम्णापतेन मूलशृङ्गार उल्लसोल्लस ज्वल ज्वल प्रज्वल प्रज्वल हस हसो हं सोऽहं स्वाहा। ॐ पृथिवी त्वया धृता लोका देवी त्वं विष्णुना धृता त्वं च मां धाय नित्यं पवित्रं कुरु चासनम्।
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.